We're now joined in the studio by public affairs analyst Barrister Ijaw Ologun to, of course, x-ray further what's going on over there. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome. It's my pleasure.
It's so much, to unpack. And of course, I don't think any aspect of this should be left, but let's probably start with, this new resolution. The Rivers State elders have said that they do not agree with it. Chief Edwin Clark has also said the same thing. He's also brought in the Ijaw perspective, to the conversation, which doesn't seem to be spoken about much. But what are your thoughts, on Sim Fubara seemingly agreeing to a resolution to sheathe, swords, with the other factions in the state?
Those are mere political resolutions. The rule of law says the law should rule, and we still have the laws of the land that are documented to guide the operations of citizens as they relate, whether at the corporate level, government level, or individual levels. And what the Constitution says, particularly in respect of those who defected, that the basis for defection that will be allowed under the law is when you have crisis that makes it impracticable for the party to function up to national level. So you don't just cook up an imaginary crisis. And they jumped both on mere excuse. So what should happen is that those seats should be declared vacant and INEC should come in to conduct election. But the next question is, how swift are we with the system of government we run to carry out these constitutional functions? And now the president has invited them as a stakeholder. And what he has done is just to probably maintain a peaceful atmosphere. But legally speaking, those issues are not binding. But you expect that the governor also will want to be seen to be a peaceful personality. Also, for some of us, there are deeper issues here. We are not making democracy appear like they are there to serve the people. I'm still asking the question. Apparently, the destruction of the House of Assembly building should be between Governor Fubara and former Governor Nyesom Wike. Who is going to be responsible for it?
It should be an impeachable offense.
Exactly. Who should? But they will deny all these things. But it's apparent, it's obvious. So why are we allowing this? And now, part of the resolution point is that the 27 defectors should be left as if they are still legitimately there. The budget should be represented to the House of Assembly. You should allow them to have their plenary at the place they choose. The building has been demolished already. At whose cost?
Yes.
You see? And again, that the commissioners that resigned should be represented to the House of Assembly for reinstatement. These are what we call reactive crisis management.
Okay.
And it does not help our democracy in any way at all.
You have, of course, spoken about the position of the law and what the position of the law should be. Let's also talk about the legality or otherwise of the earlier budgets, regardless of what the president has said. Let's talk about the legality of the governor passing the budget before, I think, a House of 4. First of all, what determines where is the assembly house, right? What determines where a sitting can be held? Is it the maze? Is it the building? Because what we saw here was the assembly complex was demolished. Allegedly, there were two different mazes. The 27 members had one maze. The one with the 4 members had another maze. So we're not quite sure what the position is. And I ask this because if we go back in time, you remember the case of, I think it would be Nokojo and Adeleke, where part of the courts had come to the decision that a house cannot, any sitting outside the assembly complex will not be regarded as one, especially because of the issues of politics, where people can go to hotels and meet and pass resolutions to impeach governors. So what determines where the house is? Is it a building? Is it a maze? And could we have even considered that the budget he passed before 4 members was actually valid?
Yes, let's start with the issue of passing the budget before 4 members. You talk about quorum. So if, legally speaking, the defectors have vacated their seats, the 4 should constitute quorum for the purpose of presenting the budget, legally speaking. And talking about where the plenary should hold, the maize is a symbol of authority. And that is why when they start their battles, someone guns for the maize and runs away, or it is stolen, or something happens. In the same Rivers State House of Assembly, they hit each other with the maize. We saw it.
I remember that.
You know, so, and the building is expected to be the official location for their functions. But you know, in Nigeria, we have several arguments, and until some parties go to court for the court to interpret the situation, whether what they are doing, but you trust them, they may come up with the argument that the building has been pulled down, they must continue to function and things. And let me say this, if you look at Section 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended, it says that the National Assembly shall make laws for the peace, orderliness, and good governance of the nation. So they should be monitoring all these gaps and be strict in the provisions we have. Because what is going on in Rivers State is just like children playing, and it does not portray us as serious-minded in any way at all. And again, we also need to move to the arena of leadership. I am in the school of thought that when I have played my roles as a leader, I should be remotely involved in how the successor manages the affairs of what I have gone through in a way to support him to succeed. But we find situations now where we have super godfatherism, that even though I have left, the control should still be firmly in my custody. That will not help us.
It's been described as a...
Exactly,
you know, as
and that is what is causing the fraction that we have in the nation now. And it's quite embarrassing. And that is what you call reinforcement theory in industrial psychology. If you don't checkmate this now, it may become the norm generally in the country.
Well, it has been the norm for a while. If we're looking at it.
But it's spreading. You know, I mean, we have blamed that the colonialists left us but did not leave us, even though we have the choice to have restructured ourselves to create commonwealth for common good. So right now, you can see people not wanting to let go of power. And it's because also, as I mentioned, that it's not about service to the people. I'm asking this question now. Go and find out who was the American president when Olusegun Obasanjo was the Nigerian military head of state. You see, you hardly hear the voice of his contemporaries then in America, but he is still a strong force here in Nigeria. And this has a toll on our governance efficacy. So there are several issues to bring out from the case of Rivers State, and people should be brought to justice. Who burnt down part of the House of Assembly?
Like I said, you know, like I said,
finally pulled down. I mean, it's embarrassing.
These are things that you normally would even see as impeachable offenses. You know, these are things that should be criminal offenses. You know,
but the governor we pass it that maybe opposition came to do it, and the governor himself.
But it also tells a lot about a society that cannot investigate who carried out that kind of crime at the government house. If we cannot investigate that and find somebody guilty, it means that we don't have security cameras, we don't have proper investigations, and so these things would pass. And so if something as simple as that cannot be investigated, then how do you investigate murder? How do you investigate robbery? What exactly can the police then do? But I want to talk about, we're going to play for our viewers, Governor Sim Fubara, and I'm going to ask about him next. There's people who have said that he would be betraying the Ijaw people. He will be betraying himself. He will even be shooting himself in the foot if he accepts this resolution. Even if there's still, people still seek clarity on whether the resolution is factual or not, if that letter was actually signed. But let's quickly share with you, a short clip where he says, of course, that there's no amount too big for peace. And they would bring our guests in on this.
My dear states, I call you my dear state because the support you have shown within this period is unmeasurable. From voters, ordinarily, I don't even have any contact with them, but they have stood by us. I want you to know that there is no amount that is too big to pay for peace.
Well, like you said, there's no amount too big for peace in Rivers State. That might be his sign of, sheathing his own sword. But Chief Edwin Clark and, of course, other elders in Rivers State have said that, he's going to be betraying them and, betraying, Edwin Clark also mentioned betraying the Ijaw people, because there's also that angle to it. But what are your thoughts, on him accepting this resolution with those who are fighting him?
Politically speaking, he's the security officer in the land. So I expected that he will move in the direction of peace. But that is not to say that the issues that should be engaged will not be engaged. You see, in Rivers State, the Equerries have produced governors, I think for about 23 years or thereabout. Now it has come to the Ijaws, and we are having issues like this. You see, you should expect that it should be resisted. And the Niger Delta region is a volatile region. And that is why I'm so concerned that what we should do to establish peace and unity in this country, we are not pursuing it. You see, and it's because of this concept of self-actualization that is dominating our political platform, that I must be the big force. Not at all. Let this thing spread. Let people benefit, because as we speak right now, the particular region in Rivers State that is not happy with what is going on may start mobilizing.
Yes.
And when the people decide to take laws into their hands, then we find ourselves in a situation of anarchy. But should the ambition of individual politicians bring us to this level, when we should be talking about developing that region, engaging in security issues and things that we have there? So I just want to advise generally that our leaders, we probably need to sit back, go for another retreat and play some videos. They don't need to go to Netherlands or Sweden or Switzerland or Singapore or Rwanda. Just play videos, Google on their phones, even if that is what they can do. And how is good governance achieved? What are the tenets of good governance? What are the recommendations of the Sustainable Development Goals that will be evaluated in year 2030 agenda?
Oh, we're very far
what
from
are the expectations? Zero tolerance for hunger, poverty,
yes.
Creating a sound economic environment. Right now, investors are leaving the country. So these are issues that should engage leaders.
The unfortunate thing is that these leaders that you're mentioning, a number of people would argue that these leaders are more particular, they're more concerned about their personal pockets as opposed to actual governance. I want us to talk now about what this would mean. Whilst we're still unraveling further information regarding this resolution as to its authenticity or not, if this holds, right, and we see that, of course, the president intervened and that is the way the scenario was resolved, what would this mean for the judiciary now and in the coming years?
The judiciary has no business until you bring business to the judiciary. I mentioned it earlier. If no one goes to the judiciary to interpret the laws, the judiciary will just be there attending to other issues, because we have three arms of government that should synergize to make the system function. But the judiciary cannot impose herself.
So if Edwin Clark, as he is threatened to take legal action against the government, if he goes to the court?
Fine. And the court will now interpret all the laws we have been mentioning, the constitution, everything, and come to a conclusion. And that is how democracy is tested. Yeah. But if no party goes to court, if they all agree on this resolution, then we find ourselves with what we call doctrine of necessity.
Yeah, but the PDP
which
did mention
necessarily does not amplify the rule of law. You see, this matter should be tested. I expect that concerned parties will go to court on this issue of defectors. Let's come to the end of it. So if they find their seats vacated and INEC conducts another election, it will send a signal to others in the future that you come in, you sit there and serve. So that is the role of the judiciary. But the judiciary cannot just jump up and say, you must come to court. No, they wait for you to come. When you come, they interpret the laws and come to conclusions. And then if you want to take it all the way to Supreme Court, why not? I've made references on cases here, the case of Abegunde in Ondo State, the case of Atiku Abubakar, and the Attorney General of the Federation on this issue of defection. So there are many precedents we can have on that. So it should be good if some major stakeholders decide to approach the judiciary.
All right. We'll see. The PDP did mention, you know, that, I mean, their stance, you know, is that these 27 lawmakers, you know, should vacate their seats, you know, so hopefully they will go to court.
That stance,
yeah. Well, hopefully they will go to court. You know, exactly. There's also, you know, actions that are expected of the PDP with regards to Nyesom Wike. But we're out of time. Barrister Ologun, always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much
for stopping by.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Absolutely. God bless Nigeria.